Hello, I'm Malcolm.
And I'm Janice. His voice is heard nationwide and his email starts with The Voice. Mm-hmm. His face was familiar to kids for many years and he's been a leading man in many miniseries and films.
Who is he?
Who is he?
Well, our special guest is Brenton Whittle, next on Anecdotes. Now, last week,
yes,
or last show, we had a radio star of the past on.
Rex
Leverington, and now I'm doing my very best radio, TV voiceover voice because we have the voice with us.
We do. Brenton Whittle, hello.
Why, thank you very much.
I'm so glad
trying
you
to
did
do my Rex Leverington voice.
Many voices.
Yeah.
Brenton, what a pleasure it is to have you on the program after all these years.
Well, after all these years, it's a pleasure to be anywhere.
It is.
Thank you.
Well,
Brenton, you started your life not as a voiceover or a movie star or a celebrity or an anything else,
yes,
or a Logie winner, might I say.
No, I didn't start that way, no.
Off-site.
Off-site, yes. OS.
OS.
Yes, no, I grew up in New Guinea, in Port Moresby. Well, I actually was born in Renmark, so I'm a local...
And they got rid of you straight away?
Riverland type boy in South Australia, and they got rid of me as quick as they could. And my father got a job in Port Moresby, in New Guinea, so at 4 years of age, I went to Port Moresby and had the most wonderful childhood.
So how long? How long were you there
I was up there for about 6 or 7 years.
Okay.
And,
we've got a couple of photos, I think, of you.
You do have photographs of me.
A child?
As a young child at school, and also with my grandmother, who used to come up there to visit us.
Which one are you? The one in the middle?
Well, I'm the little boy, the second, well, yes, second on the from
Without
the right.
the hat on.
We wore a lot of white up there when we were children.
With the shorts and the short shirt.
Yes, yeah, and that's my gran who came up from Australia. That was our, well, look, in those days they were known as houseboys.
Yes.
And that's my sister and me. That little tyke there is me. All the houses were on stilts, and that's me in grade 2 in 1955. And I'm the fourth from the right on the second row down, just below the teacher up there with the squinting.
Yes.
I squinted a lot in New Guinea because it was so bright.
Did you ever think when you were there that you would have a career in it's sort of in film, in television, in voice work, and as a puppet operator?
Well, it's it's funny because when you're little and you like to perform, and it doesn't matter how old you are, you start early in a family. Generally, you're called a show-off.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean by family? But
no, I was always called a star.
Performing. And it was my grandmother who used to encourage me a lot. She was quite religious. We were Methodists, pretty good except for the drinking and the dancing. But, you know.
but you know, didn't so many people's careers start with a church environment?
Well, Gran used to say to me, you know, read something from the Bible, Brenton. You have a lovely voice, and you read so well. So I'd have to recite from the Bible to the family, just. You sat around the piano, or you did those things in those days. You know?
Yes.
And I guess it went from there to school, and the school plays. And
who picked you up at school to say, "Hey, you've got something here"?
No, it wasn't like that.
No,
no.
They didn't recognise your talent.
In a way, because I got selected for the school opera, you know, the Gilbert and Sullivan. We all did.
Were you a girl?
Trial by jury. So
were you the girl?
No, I wasn't. I was the Jew lead.
But that happens so often.
And so that was interesting because in that cast of that, I met. Well, a couple of the others were classmates and I knew them, but there was one boy who was a year ahead of us who was training as an opera singer, and he played the judge in Trial by Jury, and he was wonderful. And at the cast party afterwards, one of the guys brought his guitar along, and we sat around the cast party and started singing, you know, folk music as it was back then. And we thought, hey, interesting. So we got together and formed a folk singing group in those days, well, even while we were at school.
Yes.
What year would that have been?
Oh my gosh, I wish you wouldn't ask questions like that.
1931?
Thank you very much. It was in the 60s, somewhere in there.
Yes.
That was the folk singing era.
Yeah.
Everyone wanted to be a folk singer.
I have to use all my fingers and toes to try and work out the actual day.
That's
But,
right,
you know,
that's right.
But it was at Seacombe High School, and
which is now
Seaview High School. Now, don't ask me why
Big
you spend
change.
millions of dollars changing the name when there is no view of the sea from it anyway.
right.
I have no
That's
idea
right.
why they did that.
Too
but
much in
no.
between.
Yeah, anyway, so we then, after we all left school, the band was going really well, and we were
So
getting...
where were you performing?
At all the coffee lounges that were
And they
Camille
were.
and the
They were
Catacombs,
everywhere.
and they were
Yes.
everywhere.
Yeah.
And we would be working flat out. So I thought, well, I was going to study law, and but the band was going really well, and we were getting so many gigs, and so I needed to get a job. Somewhere to sleep during the day and be paid for it. So I joined the public service, which was absolutely perfect.
Brenton, you could
so
be in trouble for that.
I went to the government printing office.
They'll
as a
be asking
clerk.
for their money back.
No, long spent. Not that they paid me much.
No.
And so we then, the biggest success we had was that we made it into the grand final on Bandstand, Brian Henderson's Bandstand. They had the Starflight competition, national competition. We got onto the grand final of that, and the winners of that were then sent to America and had a contract and got all of that sort of stuff. So we had a chance. But we were young. I was only about 18 when we flew to Sydney and recorded with an orchestra, and then
Wow.
mimed
Amazing.
it the next day as we taped
Pretty
it.
amazing.
Yes.
And we had an after party at which Helen Reddy was in the grand final.
And she
was a
chatted you
nobody
up,
then.
didn't she?
Now,
Dirty
got to be
girl.
careful. Yeah, she did at the party afterwards. She did chat me up afterwards. I did turn
And your
her down.
memoirs will tell the whole story.
It'll all be in the book.
It'll all be in the book.
In the book, yes. And
So did you come back and do things like the Country and Western Hour then?
we did the Country West Now before
Before you went.
Bandstand. We did it with Lionel Williams, co-competitor for quite a while, and then it wasn't...
Brenton, the painting just moved
Somebody.
on the wall.
is that a sign of something?
I
It
don't
could
know.
be.
It looks good at that angle.
Yes.
It's kind of rakish,
It's
like
different.
we are. You know,
We'll fix it later.
we're slightly bent.
Yeah. Well, speak for
Yes, we'll all
yourself.
just lean now and then nobody will notice.
And so, yeah, the Country Western Now came first, and then the band decided that they wanted, well, music had changed a lot. So we decided to ditch the folk music and become, like Beatles and Mamas and Papas and, all that sort of. But then I thought, no, I don't want to go on and be in a rock band. So I wanted to go back into acting. So I
you became an actor.
became an actor and did a lot of plays for the Therry Dramatic Society, then the Adelaide Repertory Theatre Company.
So how did you end up playing the lead in Sarah Dane? Was that the first movie you'd done?
That was, well, it was interesting because I decided there were so many things I wanted to do. I was in advertising as a writer, and I'd become a creative director.
Because you thought you had to have a day job.
Well,
Amongst always.
I loved advertising. I still do. I'm still doing it.
You'll
It
get
gave
it
me the
right one
chance to
day.
write and be paid for it and direct and produce and do all those sorts of things. But I was doing a lot of voice work, and it got a little bit embarrassing trying to find excuses to nip out of the office to go down to the studio to do some voice work. So I quit, set up my own consultancy, and my agent at the time, Anne Peters from South Australian Casting, whom I'd acted with quite often, she said, look, the South Australian Film Corporation are doing a mini-series. It's the first time they've ever ventured into that. And I'd like you to go and audition. There are 3 roles, lead roles. One's English, one's Scottish, and one's Irish. Go and screen test for all of them and see how you go. So I did. And I got the lead role as Jeremy Hogan, the Irish convict overseer who falls in love with Sarah Dane. And so it goes right through the 8 hours of the mini-series. So suddenly, my first major screen test, and I get a lead role.
How
And it was
wonderful.
18 weeks, 6 days a week. It was a big job.
I'm sure it was. Is that what you won the Logie for?
It was Best Actor 1983 Logie for the Best Actor, yeah.
Pretty
Well
much. We
done.
should all touch him now.
I know.
It'll cost you.
Well,
I'd rather touch the Logie.
Was that a complete sort of change of your life? Did
No,
you feel?
I thought it might be,
But it wasn't.
but there are all these rumours about, you win an award like that and it doesn't, get you instant fame and success.
Well, see, that's a really interesting thing to talk about because Anne Wills, who's won
17.
19. 19.
You'll kill me for that. But
and people don't realise that somebody has actually beat Graham Kennedy.
yeah. Yeah. But it was a funny night because I thought I have no chance of getting this Logie because of the competition that I was up against. So I knew I was a finalist because they tell you that you're a finalist, and that's why they invite you over.
You need to be there.
Yes.
And I was way up the back, and I thought, I'm a long way from the podium, And
Did you have a speech?
well, not until it got, well, it was getting later and later, because the Silver Logie is the second last one.
Yes.
The Best Actor one was the second last one. And, the Logies in those days had no time limit. They just went on and
Yes.
on and on. And Dennis Waterman was the guest presenter for this award. And they're showing the clips. And then I suddenly noticed some of the cameras
Moving
moving
towards
closer and circling the table. I thought, oh no, what am I going to say if this happens? And then it was announced that I had won it, and I thought, oh my God. So I got up, and it was the long walk. I had to do this long way.
So it was
I
all
had
going
time
on.
to
As the
think.
applause dies down and then starts to come back up again by the time
So I
you
went
get
up,
there.
and it was Dennis Waterman, who was the minder. He
Yes.
was, Mr. Tough Guy, the minder.
Yes.
So I walked up, and she gave me the logie, and I walked over, and I gave him a kiss on the cheek.
That's it.
I said, my brother asked me to do that. He said, oh, they're funny here, aren't they? I thought, well, what? You only get one chance at doing something like this.
Exactly.
I'm the guy who kissed the miner and got away with it. But it was a lovely night, but very surprising that I actually won it. But there you go.
Well, that's a brilliant story, though.
Brought it home to Adelaide and thought, here we go. And
Yes,
yeah.
no.
But the good thing was that I still had my company running,
Yes.
my production company.
I think so many actors really say that if you don't have that underpinning,
Yeah.
going, particularly in a country like Australia, going from one job to the next and making it a living for a family, because you had a family.
Yeah, well, I came into it late. I mean, to that stage of success, I guess. I was in my early 30s. So I had children growing up and going to school and private school and school fees and a
Exactly.
marriage and mortgage and a business to run.
And so it wasn't long until you suddenly hit children's television and you had your hand in a puppet.
Hand up at Wallaby's bottom.
I
Yes.
did clean that up. And we'll be back to talk about that in just a moment, after I fix the picture.
We're back with Brenton Whittle.
The voice.
Thank you.
Many voices.
Yes. Now you have, because you did was it an animated film?
Yes, Mario Andrecchio, one of South Australia's really great directors.
Innovators.
Along with Scott Hicks and people like that I used to work with when they were trainee directors at the Film Corporation. Many of us actors were asked to go down and do things for them to help them
Yes.
train as directors. Mario was one of those. And he did a movie called Napoleon, which was about a little dog that didn't want to be called Muffin, wanted to be called Napoleon and go exploring. And it used real dogs. These are all done with real actors, real animals, not animated at all.
Right.
And none of the trying to make their lips move or anything,
No.
but they all had their own voices. And so he asked me to come down and do several voices in this movie. One being a frog, and then there were all sorts.
You remember what they sounded like?
Well, the frog was, a deep,
Down there.
nearly, down there type voice. But when I got down to the studio, and you didn't lip sync it because there was no lip syncing, but you had to fit it within the action
frames,
sequence
yeah.
of that. And then he said, "Oh, you can sing, can't you? And you've got a nice deep voice." And hang on just a second. He came back with the sheet music and he said, "There's one song in here called Muffin, You Better Go Home," which the frog sings. You could do that. He gave me the sheet music and I, well, I'm not here to sing. He said, no, it goes like this. And they played the soundtrack, so they had the full orchestrated soundtrack there, and they said, "That's how it goes. Have a couple of rehearsals and we'll do it."
Right, right.
Oh, okay. So I ended up singing one of the main songs in the movie where the frog is talking to the little dog, Muffin, saying, "Muffin, you better go home, Muffin, you better go home, go home." And it was,
Were you the bass line in the group when you were singing as a group?
It's a great voice.
oh yeah.
You did all that.
Dip, work. Oh, he was the bass
All
man,
those.
yeah. But luckily I could.
Do you remember that? Can you do that?
Which?
The bass man.
Ding a dong ding blue moon. Oh, that whatever that was,
That was
Yeah.
Blue Moon.
Yeah. All
Good.
those songs in those.
What about
Yeah.
Mr. Bassman?
I want to be a bass man too, but I can't. No, I can't. It's
Oh,
it's
you
a
were
long
nearly there.
time ago.
I know.
It's a long time
But
ago.
watching some of these songs, if you're as old as we are, they take you right back to your youth.
Yeah.
Don't they? The music takes you right back. Talking about Bandstand, I remember seeing that on Bandstand almost every week for many years.
Yeah.
And
I was talking about music taking you back. When I grew up in New Guinea, Doris Day was at her height then.
Oh, okay.
Singing, she was a pop star.
Yes, she was.
And Que Sera Sera was a big song, and that was out when I was about 7 or 8 years old up in Port Moresby. And I used to love that song, except I didn't know what Que Sera Sera was. I thought she was saying, Kate, sit down, sit down. Whatever will be, will be. For years I thought it was Kate, sit down, sit down. But it's Que Sera Sera. And then when she died recently, it was sad because when Wilsey and I, and Wilsey's sister, Margaret, late Margaret now, we went to the Oscars. And while we were in America, we went up and stayed in Doris Day's hotel that she has, which is an animal friendly, a dog friendly.
Yes.
She ran a dog sanctuary, and she had a hotel where you could come and bring your dog to stay as well. And so it was just wonderful. We were hoping that we might pop out in one day,
and
say
sing
hello.
Que Sera Sera?
No, just appear at the hotel while we were there.
Show a face.
But I used to be madly in love with Doris Day.
I've got to tell you a story now you've dropped that. We were in Las Vegas once, and Debbie Reynolds, we went to her hotel to see her show. And we were just looking at all the stuff because she had this amazing collection of costumes from films. And turned around, there she was. And when she heard our Australian accent, she said, "Are you coming to see the show?" We said, "Yes." She said, I'll arrange it all for you." We didn't pay to see the show. She sat us right down the front. She signed her autograph on photos for all of us and played the whole show through us. It was the funniest night with the most generous lady.
Yeah.
And hearing of her death again, same thing. You realise all those memories, fortunately you have them, but the people are gone.
But I nearly had another 15 minutes of fame at the Oscars. We were walking in and going up the red carpet, up the steps into the theatre, and there was this. It was crowded. Everyone had to go in, and they're all going in at the last minute, wanting to be there. So I'm going up behind this svelte woman who had this beautiful frock on with a little one of those little trains. It's just a little bit off the back, and I didn't know who it was at the stage, and it was a really this lovely caramel creamy coffee coloured lace gown, a frock. They're all frocks in our business.
It's a gown.
With a bit of stuff hanging off.
And
the
I
back.
thought I've got to be really careful here because if I step on that little bit, she's going to walk straight out of it, So I thought, no, I'll go sideways, and I came up next to her, and it was Gwyneth Paltrow.
Oh, was it?
And at that stage, she was feeding Apple, Apple, the first
the
child,
baby.
and so she really would have come right out of this frock that I stood on.
Well, from those halcyon experiences and memories, then you did have your hand up a puppet.
Oh, sorry. Now you see, you really want to know. Well, it happened by accident. I was working with a great person in advertising who was also a theatre director, Murray George. He was one of our greatest directors.
We all remember Murray. We'll talk about him in a minute.
And he was working at the same advertising agency as myself. And at the time, he was in charge of a program called Fat Cat and Friends. Well, it wasn't exactly that at the time. They were only doing hostings, cartoon hostings, with John Oster at the time and a Rock Wallaby puppet. Rock Wallaby, this orange puppet. Michael Scheid, one of our genius actors here.
Who's been on that program.
He was the voice and the manipulator of the puppet. He suddenly left because he got the lead role as Mo in Stiffy and Mo, the big stage show that was a huge hit around Australia.
That Steve Spears wrote, who we were talking about before.
So he went off to be Mo, and Murray George comes up to my office and says, "Do you think you could do the voice of the Wallaby?" And I said, "Well, yeah, just give me some tapes and give me 5 minutes, whatever." He said, "Yeah, but you'll have to do the puppeteering as well." And I thought, I've never operated a puppet. You just put your hand up its bottom and it's fine. And I knew the character quite well. And so I went in and I thought, this is only going to be a stand until he finds someone. 7 years later, I still had, but then he introduced another puppet, which was Charlie Wombat. And so there I was under the desk,
swapping voices.
Two puppets at once.
Amazing.
And the voices somehow, accidentally, you'd put the wrong voice to the wrong puppet. So we had to make, it was pretty much live. There was no going back
No.
to take two.
No.
It was like, so suddenly,
It was a
what are you
time
doing?
thing.
You're using my voice. Stop using my voice. And so they'd have an argument about voices just to cover the fact that,
Yeah,
oops, I
well,
used the wrong
yes,
voice for the wrong
yeah.
purpose.
Well, we worked together. In fact, we all worked together, but in different versions of a show called You Don't Say.
Or don't say a word. They were two different.
That's right. And we've actually got a clip of you miming. If you remember, we rehearsed for months with this thing. Learned all little funny signs and
Signs.
whatever.
Yes.
But
Yes.
yes, those. And here's just a clip from
no.
that program.
Really?
Sarah would be proud of you.
What is it,
What
Brenton?
is it?
It's a gag.
Is it a good one?
Lots of
No.
words.
Oh,
First
just one.
word.
First word.
I. Right. I'm.
What is it? What did you
I-
do again?
I am.
I am.
I am a.
As
I am an. I am an.
I am an
Oh.
An actor. I am an actor.
full stop.
Full stop.
But you're also a heartthrob, Brenton.
I am an actor.
Sex symbol as
Yes.
well. She.
You.
You've.
You've heard about. You've heard of.
Me.
Heard
You've
of.
heard of. Yes, there's something or
then-
other.
You've heard of. Yeah.
Yes, you're a
Someone who
writer.
wrote Shakespeare.
Shakespeare.
You've heard of Shakespeare.
So they were amazing days, weren't they?
They were.
Because in those days, and a lot of those sort of shows, you record a week in a day.
We do
And
five
you
shows.
chuck out the
You do a
audience
whole
and
week's
get
worth,
another
yeah.
audience in. And Ken Dickin was the host of the show.
John Dean?
Kenny Dickin
Yes.
was one of the hosts, and John Dean was host of one of the. There were two different
Yeah.
shows, same network, but you know,
Yeah, well, I worked on
Different times.
the one we've just seen with Pam, who you were talking about
yeah,
before.
Pam Oster.
There's been so much to your life and career. What are you doing these days?
All the same things. I'm still running my.
Still got your hand up a puppet?
Well, not that I'm going to tell you about. No, I still have the puppets. They're in the shed somewhere. But
They should be in the museum.
I'm still running my creative consultancy, still writing and producing in advertising, but that's diminishing. It does as you get older and the industry changes. Changed a lot.
Strangely, though, your voice hasn't changed. You actually
It
sound
hasn't
very
changed,
much
no,
the same
because
as you always have.
I only recently listened to some old voice samples from 40, 50 years ago.
There's quite a bit online. I did a bit of research on you.
Oh, did you?
Yeah,
You
a
looked
few
me up.
audition tapes and things of yours, plus some things of the different films and TV shows you've done. They're all sitting there about you. In truth, it's people like yourself that need to be accoladed more within our industry, I think, because you've given... No, but people like you have given the industry a real backbone from which so many things have spread. when
Have
you
they
think
offered
about
you a star on the pavement yet, near the...
No,
No.
they haven't.
it. Us neither.
Yes, I know.
But I have a new career. I'm about to reinvent myself. It's time. And
What as?
As a playwright.
Oh, of course.
yes.
You've just had your play done.
My first completed play, Well Shut My Mouth, had its premiere here in June.
Just
in Adelaide.
shut your mouth for 1 minute because we've got to take a break and we'll hear more about that play when we come back.
That's rude, telling Brenton to shut his
my
mouth.
Well, he said shut my mouth, so I told him he
Look,
needed
I've
to.
been told to shut my mouth by experts, so I mean,
What are you implying? So you wrote this play. What
Yes.
What was the inspiration?
well, it sounds a bit morbid, but it's not. My father dying, I got to the hospital just too late. I was going in to visit him. My son, who's a doctor, was actually at the Royal Adelaide at the time, so he was able to be there. He rang me and said, "Oh, you're coming in?" I said, "Yeah, I'm just about there." And he said, "Oh, I'm sorry, but you know, Pop's gone." And I got there and walked into the room, and so he was just laying there by himself. My mother and sister had gone out to get some lunch, having been there with him, and I think he decided it was he'd go while
They were
no
out.
one around, pretty much. He'd had a lot of heart problems and things, so it was expected. And it was a do not resuscitate. It was no point. But he was lying there and his mouth was open, and it meant nothing at the time. It was just an image that stuck, because that was my first image of my father who had died. And then, of course, Mum and my sister arrive, and then other family members who we ring up and they come in, and so people are there and they're all talking, saying things and doing that. Later, years later, that image came back to me, along with the fact that it's interesting how people do that. And I thought, what if the person who's just died could hear what people are saying? Because depending on the family dynamics, they not necessarily nice things being said, you know what I mean? So
who knows they can't?
Exactly. And then I thought, let's take it to the next ridiculous level. What if they could somehow answer back? So the premise of the play was, it starts with our hero dying, and he's lying there with his mouth open. So you get the "well shut my mouth" comes up in the play when one of the people said, "It's a bit spooky, shouldn't someone shut his mouth?" And his wife says, "Well, no one could shut it when he was alive, why start now?" Which sets the scene for that kind of family.
Yep.
And so it starts when he dies, but he gets to respond to all the things that might be said or happen at the funeral parlour, or then happen at the wake that they plan to have at home later, which becomes a bit of a disaster, the wake, because...
Actually, Brenton, it sounds like a great storyline that is worth seeing.
It was worth seeing.
I'd love to keep talking, but our time is up.
Oh.
Just thank you for all your contribution to the industry over the years, and good luck with the play and where that goes in the future.
Thank you very much. Thanks.
Great pleasure to have you.
Thanks.
Janice?
Yes.
Time to go.
It is,
Put the
unfortunately.
kettle on. Got the dinner ready, lunch ready, breakfast ready, whenever this is going to air. We hope to see you very soon. Keep yourself nice till then.
Take care.
Bye.